to the Maulana Vastanvi, who's spoken and really made this point. He's standing by it, but the question is there's now a lot of pressure being made to bear on him. We'll keep tracking the story. Let's move on now. Real mobility is finally here. This is no less than a second telecom revolution, a complete game changer. The Prime Minister today launched mobile number portability. The much-awaited scheme makes the consumer the king in the real sense. So if you've been stuck with your current service provider just because you don't want to lose your number, feel free to move on. 19 rupees in 7 days is all it'll take to switch to a better option.
Years after India was revolutionized by the entry of mobile phones, a second revolution has been rung in by the Prime Minister.
The introduction of mobile number portability is an important step forward in further improving our telecom services.
This is perhaps the most complex exercise ever done, because no other country in the world has so many service providers in any circle. And then to get all this together on two switch systems and get all the technologies which require interconnectivity and then provide the services is something, it's monumental. It's never happened anywhere.
The UPA's eagerness to appropriate this as an achievement of the government is understandable. A recent Snap poll shows that the service is going to be a blockbuster, as up to 50% mobile phone owners are unhappy with their service provider. If that figure holds for India's 600 million customers, operators have reasons to be worried.
Well, MTNL must plan it. We just can persuade MTNL to compete in the market, that's all. I mean, that's something planning that MTNL has to do. Because after all, if you have to compete in the market, you must keep a share of the market, and a substantial share of the market if you want to prosper. So I'm sure that MTNL will get his act together and compete.
This whole MNP is consumer focused. As far as service providers, it's going to force service providers to continue to focus on the things that matter most to the consumer, which is the quality of service, ability to take care of your consumers.
It's a consumer service, and consumers are going to be demanding, and you shouldn't expect anything less from an Indian consumer. Whether it is the level of service, the kind of service, and the portfolio of services that any operator offers has to be at par with what I call what they see elsewhere in the world.
So if you're ready to embrace mobile number infidelity, here's how you should go about it. Subscribers can contact the new service provider they want to opt for and get customer acquisition form and porting form from them. If you fulfill the eligibility norms, you will then obtain a unique porting code by sending an SMS from the mobile number you want to port to 1900 with text PORT followed by a 10-digit mobile number. Then provide duly filled porting and customer acquisition form along with documentary proof to the service provider. Postpaid subscribers are also expected to submit a copy of their last bill along with the form. You have the option of withdrawing your porting request within 24 hours of applying. You will be charged only 19 rupees for using the service. With Kamaljeet Sandhu in Delhi, Chandni for Headlines Today.
This is the opportunity for the customer to strike back. For years, customers across India have endured their operators. Some have had very unhappy experiences. This is the day mobile phone users across the country have really been waiting for. What happens? It's considered the next big revolution in mobile telephony. The customer can now indulge in open infidelity. Are operators worried? How does the mobile situation in India change from here? Joining us on the show this evening, Sachin Pilot, Minister of State for Information Technology and Communications. He's been pushing really hard to make number portability a reality. With me in the studio, Sanjay Kapoor, CEO of Bharti Airtel. And with us also, for a customer perspective, Professor Sriram Khanna, one of India's leading consumer rights activists. I want to come to you, Sanjay Kapoor, first. Are you a worried man?
Well, I can straight away start off by saying a very warm welcome to all those mobile customers in the country who don't use Airtel. It's an invitation to join Airtel, the experience of 150 million happy customers. I would say we've always believed what is good for customers is good for Airtel. So I'm pleased and I welcome this.
We just saw that survey which has been done, which shows 50% of the people using their mobile phones are dissatisfied with their service provider. Being one of the oldest operators in the game, that would give you reason to be worried.
So Rahul, you got to complete the survey analysis and say how many of them want to move over to Airtel. Of course, it's a very competitive environment. You also need to keep in mind the amount of spectrum that's available in this country is truly confined compared to any other part of the world. And I think given all these constraints, Indian networks are comparable to probably the top quartile operators anywhere in the world. Given that scenario, of course, you can't have every customer happy because there are constraints on the spectrum and constraints on the reach because of that. However, given all things remaining constant, I think the end result of the survey says the big operators win and Airtel will have the maximum benefit of that migration.
Sachin Pilot, direct question straight up. Are you planning to change your mobile phone operator? Why? If not, why? And how do you see things change? More importantly, how do things change from here?
I think the more important question is not whether A or B can change his or her operator, but the fact that you're giving the freedom of choice to 750 million people in this country. A choice that is constrained because people didn't want to change their numbers, and the hassles of changing their service providers was something that we've been deliberating in the DOT for a long time. And I'm really happy today that the Prime Minister himself today launched the MNP. It's, to my mind, really a path-breaking step that the telecom sector, the telecom industry has taken today. And this will also, I think rightly so, increase the competition amongst the operators. And why not? Why should consumers suffer call drops and congestion on the network? And if you are, you can't be taken for granted anymore. And then by paying a small token fee, you can change the operator, keep the same number. It's the kind of flexibility and the kind of choice and the kind of options and diversity of operators that you can pick from. That is really the more important question. I'm really happy today that the Indian customers, the Indian mobile industry has ushered in this new very, very important step.
No, but tell us, you've obviously been analyzing the possible ramifications of implementing this decision for several months now. What is your analysis showing? What could be the possible consequences of implementing this? And customers also want to know, why has this decision been delayed for 3 years? Why has this taken just so long to make happen, Sachin?
Well, the fundamental philosophy behind the government's initiation in doing this is that we believe that it is our responsibility to provide the Indian mobile customers the cheapest and the best quality of services. And along with the industry, we've been able to do that. Don't forget, 15 years ago, incoming calls weren't free. Today, the handsets have become reasonable and affordable, and people are adopting and using the mobile handsets and mobile telephony as a common thing of utility for, in fact, most of Indians. And the thinking behind the government's initiative was that along with the industry operators, both large and small, in all 22 circles, is to have a pan-India rollout to give people the option and the freedom. And don't forget, it is a complicated exercise. There are technicalities involved, there are issues of security, complications of interoperations, and making sure that everybody is on par. Because each time you change your number, there are two companies involved, there is a transition period, so it's not all that simple. And we wanted to make sure that we are doing our diligence work right from the scratch and not come up with glitches once the program starts rolling out. So today has been a culmination of months and months of hard work, and I think I must compliment the department and the industry for coming together on this.
Okay. Dilip Modi is the president of ASSOCHAM and the managing director of Spice Mobility, joining us now. Who is it who loses out, Dilip? Is it the older players who have most to lose because they've got the biggest federation? And do the new entrants who've been advertising so aggressively, trying to take advantage of this, waiting for number portability to happen, are they going to benefit because they've got more spectrum available and therefore call drops might be lesser?
Well, I think more than old and new, the power is now truly shifted in the hands of the customer. And effectively now the focus is more on who provides better quality of network, better services. And I think at the end of the day, it is the operator who is able to focus more on network quality, coverage, and services and applications and customer service who will win at the end of the day. So I think it is about quality rather than old or new.
Okay, I want to introduce a customer representative, Sriram Khanna. You know, people have been waiting for this opportunity, and that also sometimes is because if you've been with the older players for very long, over a period of time, fatigue sets in. Sometimes you don't pay your bill, they cut your connection, something goes wrong. There is a certain amount of irritation. Will that lead to unduly high number of people just wanting to change their operator for the sake of changing their operator? I don't like my old operator, let's get a new one.
See, let me put it to you. I think today's launch of number portability is a gift to the Aam Aadmi. The Aam Aadmi gets the power of choice, and that's a very important choice. If I'm dissatisfied with my current service provider, I know I can change any time I like. That's a big freedom. One. Whether everybody will change is another question. And I believe what is going to happen as a result of this is that customers are going to become very careful discriminators of good, bad and ugly service. And they will be able to, over time, learn who is the operator in my area who is providing the best service. And it's not only service, it's price and service. Today it is only price, and the rest is left to God.
Okay.
So price, the lowest price at the best quality in the world is what the Indian consumer expects. And I am sure that with the nature of competition in the Indian market being where it is today, it will only increase.
Okay.
There will be greater competition, and I know by theory and by practical experience, the greater the competition, more the symmetry of information, the better deal is for the customer.
Okay, Sanjay, given the fact that the only data we have available with us indicates that 1 in 6 customers want to change, which means out of 600 million people, maybe 100 million potential customers want to change their service provider and would like to opt for this, does it then lead to the conclusion that the newer operators, because they've got more bandwidth available, more spectrum available, will be able to provide better quality? Because that's the sense that people are getting. You're one of the oldest operators. Is that perception correct? Are you afraid about that?
So Rahul, if you were to go by what happens across the globe and what number portability has done, first of all, India is a prepaid market. If you see the churn percentages in this country are already 8 or 9% at an industry level per month, which means a lot of people churn.
Which is much more than international standard?
Much more than international level. Simply because there is very little entry barrier and very little exit barrier in the industry, and prepaid has fungibility which is there, right? And also the price points that operate in this market are the least in the world probably, which means the propensity on a sustainable basis for many operators to drop in this market actually doesn't exist. We all know that most operators in the market actually operate on price points which are much higher than their cost. And it doesn't work. Therefore, the sustainability of the service is very important. What makes a customer click? Even if you look at the world, it is not MNP that has resulted to the maximum migration. It's the availability of services, technology that has made migrations happen in the rest of the world. Just to give you an example, look at iPhone. iPhone as a service available with one operator and not being available with other operator has actually led to much more churn than a mobile number portability has in the world. Look at India, for example. The older operators who've developed services here have built robust countrywide networks with huge amount of expense over a point in time. Even in the 15th year of operation, we go invest $2 billion into the network every year. The services that we brought to the table, starting from ringtones to first BlackBerry services, to iPhone, to mobile application platforms, and now to m-commerce and all, are things that get built over time.
So you're saying the older operators have a proven delivery record.
Absolutely.
But Sachin, have you calculated in the ministry how many people are likely to shift over? Is there a sense, because the sample size of the survey that's been published in the newspapers is very small, just 4,000 odd. Is there a sense of how many people are likely to migrate?
We don't know. I think the market is quite unpredictable, but the more important aspect of this decision and this implementing of MNP is that people should have the option, should have the choice. Now, I think the government is agnostic to technology or to operator or to companies as long as the consumers benefit, and it has been the endeavor of this government since we've taken charge to make sure that we have a transparent way of functioning and giving the power to the people. If they choose to remain with the current operators, it's their choice, but it will certainly make the operators wake up to the fact that you cannot have a poor quality of services, poor coverage, congestion and call drops. There have been plenty of complaints about people not being happy with the operators. So today they have the freedom to choose. So it is not, it's optional now. So, and that is what is going to make the market more competitive and ultimately benefit the consumers, which is the objective of the exercise from the government's point of view, as it is, I'm sure, from the industry's point of view.
Dilip, every viewer watching at this time has in the back of his head the thought, should I, shouldn't I, mustn't I? You've obviously thought a lot about this. Try and be objective for a moment and explain to our viewers who is number portability meant for, who should consider shifting, what should be the circumstances in which they should move, and what are the advantages and disadvantages?
Well, I think, obviously what number portability does give someone is the comfort that when you choose a network and when you choose a number, you can stay on with it even if tomorrow you're not happy with the network. So for example, if you have a work in an area where there's not good network coverage and you do not find that your network service provider is providing adequate coverage in that area, then you can choose to move on to another network provider who is providing adequate coverage in the area. Similarly, if you, for example, use new applications and services which the network operator whose number you initially took is not being able to provide to you, an example that Sanjay gave, then you can choose to move on to another operator who can provide you those services, like iPhone or BlackBerry and others. So at the end of the day, I think it's truly a leveler, and I think it's an opportunity for people to have the comfort to be able to move on in case they find that what they're looking for, they're not able to get it on a consistent basis from the network provider that they initially chose.
Okay, but there are certain things the telecom industry has found out in all the years that's been operating in India that are unique to the Indian market. For example, you have more people doing prepaid than postpaid. That's something which doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. So is there a concern, Mr. Khanna, that just because of the unique nature of the Indian market and just because people over a period of time started getting frustrated with their operators, they would want to change? Change for the heck of it. They might realize later that it wasn't necessarily for the better, but the propensity of the Indian customer to seek that change.
See, in the last few years, what has happened is that bulk of the telecom mobile subscribers are prepaid. I would say nearly 90%. Am I right, Mr. Sanjay? 99 out of 10 people who have a mobile phone are prepaid. And some of them already have 2, 3, 4 or 5 SIMs, which means they are already exercising portability in the market. So I wouldn't expect too much of a churn.
That's jugaad portability.
It's jugaad, which means you have 3 different numbers. So you have a good deal on, one number, you use that. And now you see the number of handsets with the dual SIM card capability. They have proliferated.
Okay.
You can buy them anywhere in the market.
Sachin,
5 years ago, you couldn't do that.
Sachin, before I conclude this debate, the telecom market in India has created its own grammar. Several things unique to India which don't happen anywhere else in the world. Sriram Khanna just spoke about jugaad portability, which has been around for the longest time and no one's ever known this. How do you see the market change? The 1 rupee STD call was the last really big idea. How do you see the market change now that portability is here?
Well, I think the industry is quite robust. It's the second largest mobile market in the world, growing at between 15 to 18 million subscribers a month. We have almost 10 operators in 22 circles across the country, and we have a regulator that regulates for the entire industry. So it is a robust industry. It's dynamic. It's growing all the time. And now I think the movement is going to be towards value-added services. 3G is going to have a massive rollout. You will have internet, broadband, television, mobile banking. So it's an ever-changing landscape. I'm just glad that the government is being able to provide to the people the option, the choices, and the kind of services that the new India deserves and is wanting. And ultimately, through MNP, through various other measures that we have been able to take, it's power to the people, it's power to the consumer, and I hope people do exercise their power and get the best value for their money.
Oh, absolutely. The one thing you can be certain of if you're watching the show this evening is that the next time somebody from one of the operators is calling you for whatever reason, he'll be a little more polite than he was the last time. For the moment, Dilip Modi, Sachin Pilot, Sanjay Kapoor, Sriram Khanna, will the telecom operators be sleeping peacefully, Mr. Kapoor, or are they worried about what might happen? Will they sleep content?
Telecom scenario in this country has been the most competitive. We've been competing with 40 players in the marketplace. So I don't think it gets any tougher any part of the world. But however, consumer choice always humbles the operators more than earlier.
And now the consumer has that choice. And what a fantastic thing that is. Let's all welcome number portability and thank all our guests for joining us on the show this evening. News and updates continue on the other side.